Hey everyone, Tactics here. In this video, I'll be discussing the penultimate boss of Nerub-ar, a palace on Mythic difficulty, the Silken Court, which is a pretty significant step up in terms of difficulty. I'm going to be going over everything that you and your group need to know about this boss, including useful weak auras, raid plan preparation, and of course, a walkthrough of all 3 phases and 2 intermissions to help you guys move on to Queen Ansarek. I'll do my best to keep this as short as possible, but we'll see how successful I am in that department. But let's not waste time. Let's get into it. And to start, I'm going to discuss the main changes going into Mythic difficulty here, where the biggest one by far is this Whispers of the Silken Court ability. Basically, how this works is on pull. Each boss is going to do a cast, and basically the 10 closest players to each boss gets either marked with Paranoia, which is blue team, or Rage, which is red team. That's how I'm going to refer to him from now on. The key here is if you ever touch anyone of the opposite color, you blow up and you both die. So you need to make sure that throughout the duration of this fight, because these are permanent buffs for the whole fight, you are constantly avoiding the other color debuffed players. Some things to note here, like I said, these never go away, and that includes on death. So if someone dies and you are going to battle res them, you need to make sure the battle reser is from the same color as that player being resed. 2, dead players will still have the color above their head, but they aren't actually active players. So if a red person is dead on the ground, someone who's blue can walk over their body. Again, with the exception of being battle resed, sometimes it would kind of bug out and the battle res player would be alive at their body for like a split second and then teleport to the person that battle res them. And so if that did happen, that would cause anyone on top of the body to be killed if someone was. So it's good if you're trying to battle res someone to avoid their body if you are of the opposite color. That being said, Holy Priest Angels, even though that's a dead person, that still counts as a person. So if you're a priest, if you have a Holy Priest and they die and they're in angel form, anyone of the opposite color needs to be very, very scared of that angel because it will kill them if they touch it. Now, if this does not make the fight hard enough for you, that's not all that is changing. On top of having everyone marked in your raid, there are several mechanics in the fight now that will cause players hit to spawn an orb of the same color as them. These orbs will actually detonate here. These motes is what they're called, after 20 seconds. And when they do so, they will apply a debuff to everyone of the opposite color. And then if anyone gets to, I believe, 4 stacks here, you basically instantly die. So to prevent that from happening, what you can do is you can have a player of the opposite color of the mote step on it and it soaks it. And that puts this dot, instead of on the entire group, it only puts it on that individual player. So you get a stack of a dot instead of your entire group. So basically what this means is, you're going to be spread around the boss. You're going to drop your motes and then you're going to rotate around the boss and you're going to soak the other team's motes. Again, avoiding getting to 4 stacks as a soaker because otherwise you will, of course, die. In terms of what abilities are actually going to be spawning orbs on this boss fight, you've got the Venomous Rain, which happens throughout the fight, and on Mythic, it now targets every single player in the raid, so that's going to spawn 20 orbs or more if you are cleaving it, so you want to avoid that. In phase 1, you've also got the Web Bombs, which spawn on ranged players on red side, and this creates motes. And then in phase 2 and in phase 3, you've got the Web Vortex pull-in that spawns them, as well as the Entropic Desolation, which is the AoE around the boss that is immediately after the Web Vortex pull-in. And then finally, in both intermissions, the group hits that happen every like 20-ish seconds or whatever it is, those also spawn orbs on every single player. Other quick changes to cover. Anubarash's charge in P1 and in P3, you now need 3 web lines to prevent it from happening, so a bit more coordination needed there. And then the Web Vortex ability that I talked about in P2, the pull-in, it now actually happens in 2 stages here. So it pulls in all players of one color, and then after that, it immediately pulls in all players of the other color. So otherwise, it'd be kind of unfair with the actual Mythic mechanic, right? The color it pulls in, though, is random each time. So you need to be ready to react accordingly, and we'll talk about that when we get to phase 2. So what does all this mean? Well, first, you need to split your raid into 2 groups, of course, 1 red team, 1 blue team. And the question is, how exactly do you do this? And there's a few different strats for this, each with their own positives and negatives. For us, we opted to have a red team solely dealing with webs and webbing the charges, both in phase 1 and in phase 3, which leaves blue team to one, deal with soaking way more orbs than red team because more motes are spawned by those webs in phase 1, the actual web bombs, and 2, we also had blue team responsible for actually grouping and AoEing down the ad sets each time they happen. So that means in terms of composition wise, we put things like evokers and more ranged players on red side to deal with web bombs, and just rescues are really useful for that as well. And on the other side with blue, we put more death knights for grouping the ads, as well as more mobile melee DPS, just to be able to aggressively move and soak those orbs, because blue side does have quite a few orbs to soak. As a note, though, you will still want to have a couple ranged on a blue side just to deal with some of the mode soaks in P1, which I'll discuss when we walk through that phase. Now, the other important choice here to make with groups is where exactly you put your tanks. With a lot of groups kind of split on where they want to put them. Some have put both tanks on blue, which is what we do in our kill video that I'm going to show you here, but others have put one tank on each color. There are, again, positives and negatives to both choices here. For example, like I said, blue side needs to soak way more orbs throughout the fight, so having two tanks on that side means you're significantly less scared of having that stacking dot on that player, and it's much safer to actually go up to 2-3 stacks every single time orb spawn. But it also leads to some riskier boss movements throughout the fight, which is totally alleviated if you have a tank on red side and a tank on blue side, because you can just adjust your taunt off depending on like where the caster boss actually jumps. If it's easier for like red side to position the boss, you can just have the red tank do it and then swap the before the piercing strike actually goes out if it's the other tank's job to take it, for an example. On top of this, you can also assign a tank, if they're on red side, to be part of the actual web groups, which makes you lose less DPS, less uptime, and again, makes that a little safer because it's someone more durable actually doing that. Again, assuming you actually trust your tank to do those web soaks, but that is a definite positive. So for our kill, again, we ended up using tanks on blue side, but after having done the fight, after having progged it, I actually do think it would have been better to put, I guess, me specifically as a guardian druid on the red side just for overall progression, and have kept my co-tank, who's a blood DK, on the blue side, of course, because we put the double DKs on that side. Very useful, because A-Bomb's Limb, basically you can alternate ad sets with A-Bomb's Limb and have it up for every single ad set of the fight, which is very useful. So 2 DKs, very super useful there. And it's not even restricted to blood DK in this case, like Brood Twister was, or Brood Twister. In this case, any DKs, 2 of any DK specs will work. Just put them both on blue side, alternate A-Bombs for ad sets. Very nice. And since I'm talking about comp here, let's talk about a little bit more. It's a general comp here, right? 2 tanks, 4 healers, the rest DPS. Not a ton of compositions. Like I said, 2 DKs, super useful. Any kind of DK will do. Throw them on blue side. Outside of that, it's just kind of whatever you have, whatever your best players are. For our specific strat, for something in P3, which is a little cheesy, we use a Holy Priest. You don't need to do that. I will discuss that in P3, but it is quite useful, I think, and will probably cut a few wipes off of this boss for you, and it makes that end basically overlap a lot easier. I guess one note, though, is that the fight is very movement intensive, so having more movement speeds available to you is quite nice. I think our shamans took like the double wind rush, for example. Obviously having roar is very useful. Time spirals to reset personal movement CDs, that kind of thing. So just having a lot of movement available for your group is quite nice. From there, let's talk WeakAuras, and there's a few important ones to have. My guild used the Northern Sky WeakAura pack for this boss here because the liquid one wasn't out. The liquid pack is now out, so if your guild prefers to use that one, by all means, go for it. But obviously, I'm going to recommend the Northern Sky one, which is the one that we specifically used for this progression. You can grab it here. This is the one. It also requires the second WeakAura here, the database and functions, in order to work properly. And in terms of what that pack actually provides for this boss, let's go through it. So there's a few things. Some are raid leader specific, some are general. So one, web list, great for the raid leader to be able to actually see who you're bound with. Dispel stuff for the tank mechanic. So that is a poison dispel and a magic dispel. So poison spells P1, magic spells P2 and P3. You can go in here and set the actual trigger based on stack count to be different. So 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. I think generally like 5 is kind of the safe spot a lot of people went to. Yeah, is generally where it went to. And you can also come in here and put a different sound on it. Whatever sound you kind of want to be on it, you can put a sound on it. Makes it quite useful, so your tanks get dispelled. That's nice. Only for healers, of course. This is the dispel one. This also puts dispels on the numbers on your raid frames. You'll see as well. So pretty useful again, just to know who is next up to be dispelled, so you can kind of get ready to pre-position, and also for the raid leader to call it. Orb groupings. This one was super useful. Basically, what it shows is the number of orbs left up on red side, number of orbs left on blue side, and the time before those orbs are going to expire. And I believe it only shows the bar for the side that you are, but it shows this number, both of them. So very, very useful WeakAuras. That one has been super useful. And then Web Vortex text here. Basically, what this does is it tells you basically the Web Vortex, how it happens. Like I said, one group gets pulled in, then the other group. The strat we used is basically the first group that gets pulled, you always go left and right. The second group that gets pulled, you always go straight through. And so what this text does is it tells you go left, right, or go straight through, depending on if you get pulled first or second on the web pull-in. So pretty useful there. If you forget what you're supposed to do, you just literally just follow the text. The text tells you exactly what to do, which is super nice. Now, there's also some pretty useful WeakAuras in the general nerub-ar Palace pack, which is also made by Relo. That is this one here. This has a ton of stuff into it. A lot of it is not going to be useful to most players, but specifically what is super useful for this boss in the Silken Court area, I believe, where is it? Icons. Here it is. The Void Degeneration and the Burning Rage. This basically is your stack tracker for that dot when you soak an orb. So again, like this, you can set sounds here on conditions here. Basically, when you're at 1 stack, it makes this sound. When you're at 2 stacks, it makes this sound. And then, of course, nice old air horn when you're hit 3 stacks, because, of course, you die at 4 stacks. So it's super useful to have whichever one of these is the color you're soaking. So I was blue side. So Burning Rage was the WeakAura that I used because I'm soaking red orbs, and the red orbs give you the red debuff. So that's how it works. And so, again, super useful. Noise on this to let you know you soak something, and to let you know, hey, you need to stop soaking now. Super, super useful. Would definitely recommend that. There's also a race bar WeakAura in here. We actually ended up using a third-party race bar WeakAura. We found it a lot better. Let me see if I can find that for you. Was it in the previous one? It might have actually been in this one. Here it is. Basically, what this does, obviously, it shows the health bar of the shield and the intermissions, shows where you want to finish the intermission by. And then here, specifically for phase 1, it's really, really nice. It shows when each wave detonates. That's what these ticks are. It's when the first wave spawn detonates, second wave spawn detonates, third and fourth. Super, super useful. And I have that one here. And again, all these are going to be linked in the description here as well for you. Super, super useful. Also have our note here to help you out. Basically, we have pair assignment, which is for P2 for the actual web pull-ins to make grouping a little easier. I'll talk about that later. Some intermission stuff, and then the dispel stuff, which is also part of Northern Sky. You can set the dispel order as well in that pack, so that healers know rather who is dispelling which exact debuff. Pretty useful. Now, of course, I do have a raid plan here. I'm not going to actually walk through this raid plan for you. I will link it in the description. I think it's easier to just show you the kill and show these positions, because as you can see, this is phase 1 and it's like a 13 slide thing. So we're not going to go through these raid plans, but they are linked in the description below. The biggest thing I can just recommend for these raid plans is, or for in general for this fight, honestly, is try and do the same thing every single time. If you do the same thing positioning wise, whatever, every single pull, it's going to make your pulls so much more consistent just from pull to pull. And the more consistent you are, the easier time you're going to have with this boss fight. There's no real DPS check, no real healing check, no real tank check, anything like that. This is a pure positioning dance fight. And so just positioning consistently is going to help you defeat this boss. I guess one thing to know off the top, you will see that 3 of our range that are not responsible for doing a web break up here in this corner. And basically they just, all the range on red side that aren't doing that. So we have our 3 evokers doing it. So these 3 other range, they go into the corner, they stack up, they drop their webs there, and they gate out so that they don't actually trigger them, and they stay there the whole fight. That is the one little bit that the raid plan can show you here nicely, which I'm not going to see super well. But otherwise, let's get straight into the actual boss fight itself. Let's speed it up a little bit here too. Boom. Right, so like I said, you can see they're pre-positioning Mind Tooth bosses. They're they're gonna gate in probably, and then use your personal port out. And you see the circles here, right? So the big circle, we're all blue, they're all red. The first thing you're doing, you see we walk through and we bait a frontal over here, just to make it a little easier. We bait that frontal, we move to the other side. That always goes on the opposite team. So like we're baiting this guy's frontals, and red side baits Sky and Tomato's frontals. That's just how that works as well. And so we go to this other side because we're now grouping the bosses together. It's easier for red side to get to this side, so we taunt this boss over, and then they all come over behind this boss, and we get into our positions, like I said. So a few things to note here. One, our evokers are responsible for being part of the web pairs, and we have assigned spot, one here on the outside, one in the middle, and one slightly towards the center. They, of course, like you're going to see the 3 in the back, they're going to spawn web puddles here, and they're going to gate out, and they're going to be safe. It's going to be fine. And what's going to happen here basically is one melee for each of these range is assigned to be their partner. So you can see the melee, it steps back a little bit, is in that swirly melee. It's right here, you can't quite see it, steps back a bit. And same deal here. So there's going to be an evoker and a melee on each pairing basically, and they're going to be the web pairs for this this first charge here. So they're going to be together, whereas these back guys, they're never going to even get those webs at all. And the key here to remember is one, the rain is about to come out and these are about to come out. So the big thing is this is going to spawn an orb on both players hit, and then the rain is going to spawn an orb. So it's very, very important to do a small movement here, because one thing that kills people the most is having 2 orbs or even 3 orbs stacked on top of each other in one spot that you can't see them. That is going to be, that was a big murderer for us early on in progression, though granted that was when you died at 3 stacks instead of 4, so it's a little less dangerous now, but still, if you already had soaked 2 orbs and you see a 3rd orb and it's actually 2 orbs on top of each other, you die to that, right? So make sure, the biggest thing, try not to keep your orbs stacked, and that's specifically a red side thing with these webs in P1, but also if you ever cleave the rain, that spawns 2 orbs as well. So be careful of that. So you're going to see they're going to spawn that, and they're going to do a small movement here, immediately off the orbs. And you see they did that, they moved, and it spawned 2 orbs, not directly on the 2 orbs. So a little bit of movement there, very important. And then immediately after this rain, you see we have all these orbs spawning. We do a counterclockwise rotation. So we turn this way around the group, and we go and we soak orbs. It's very important. You can see there's a lot of orbs here, so that we have some more fast runners like the Demon Hunter on the blue side and the Monk on the blue side are going deep here. Meanwhile, we have one A-bombs limb going again, who's on blue side, gripping these ads together. We tend to chain CCs on these ads. These first ones tend to not be as dangerous because a lot of people are in cooldowns here. And so what we ended up happening is because Ursul's, it comes up a late on the second set if you use it early on this first set, is I actually just held this Ursul's and used it quick on the second set of ads in this phase to make that easier. But Ursul's is another great spell here. Binding shot can be pretty useful, that kind of thing. And just these range guys, if they have a knockback available to them, that is also pretty useful, just in case a scarab gets out without a death grip or something like that. In terms of who is out here, there's basically, I think that's also something I can show in the raid plan. There's a few people that play out. Basically, there's 3 range, the 3 that aren't doing webs from red side, and also a couple mages from blue side here. And if anyone needs help soaking when we do soaks out there, I believe it's our shaman that comes out. Yeah, see, our shaman will come out, soak the orbs, and he goes back to play in the actual blue side. He just comes out to soak those orbs when there's some web spawns to create them. Now, we keep going here. This is going to be the first damage gem. So again, we're focused. Basically, blue side is cleaving these scarabs down. That's blue side's job. And red side is now going to be focused on breaking or preventing this charge from happening. So what you're going to see here is blue side is going to move a little bit down towards the corner, the edge of the boss here as soon as he jumps away. And that gives space for red to cross here, because this is a potential danger point, right? If blue is playing too far up here, you can easily block the path of these red guys. If red is playing too far down here, again, you're going to be in the path of blue. So both the red people making the line and the blue people on the side and need to be aware of what's going on here. Blue plays a little bit down, red plays a tad bit up, but also, don't go super far out of your way. You still want to break it around here. Because again, the boss, when he gets webbed, he has a little bit of momentum and then he's stunned. So here gives him basically right where the other boss was, which is why we do that. So web break, you get your first damage amp. And then from here, we're going to do a rotation. It's going to be the acid rain, and then we rotate again, try and be consistent with your space. One thing to note here, your next movement is entirely dependent on where the boss jumped. This boss does not always jump to the same spot. He jumps to two potential spots here, either one way over here or one up here. Because we're doing the 2 tanks on blue strat, if he jumps up here, it's super easy. We just walk to it. If he jumps over here, this is one of the dangerous movements I was talking about earlier, where not having a red tank is potentially scary. So I'll show you actually this movement now. So we're going to do the rain. We do the rain. We rotate around the boss again, soak the orbs, and then we bait a frontal on red side. Or on blue side rather, sorry, we bait that frontal, and then we move after that frontal. So the big thing here, I'm now a blue tank. I'm running between the red side, the red range, and the red melee. Red needs to hug the wall here, avoiding this web, of course, and I'm going to run through and stack the bosses up again. This is one of those dangerous movements here, potentially, but we got used to it. You did see the dragon like flying close, whatever, but we kind of had gotten used to it at this point after like 100 pulls or whatever it was to this movement, so they knew kind of how far they could cheat towards you. But something to be aware of, red should be hugging this wall basically as the blue tank comes through, and of course the red ranger in the middle, and then we get the bosses stacked here. And again, if it's the other side, you just pull it right on top on the other side. It's also simple. Here's the second set of ads on top of having rain. So again, we have our rain spread spots. We're spread for rain. This also baits a frontal immediately after, so you need to be ready to move. This is where I'm dropping like Ursals, and again, our second A-bombs limb is also running. And this immediately now is into the actual web. So this is the reverse of the first one, where it's rain into webs. The first one was webs into rain. And so now, as soon as these webs spawn, that's when we're going to rotate, because of course the rain orbs have already been on the ground for 4 seconds at this point. It's going to be like 5 or 6 before we rotate. So now is when we'd rotate. And so that means that there are a bunch of orbs over on this side that are going to detonate relatively soon, right? Within 12 seconds, there's going to be a bunch of orbs that are detonating. The ones that just spawned aren't scary, but the other ones are. So we need to get through there quickly and soak orbs. Boom, we're going fast. That's what we have my roar assigned there to get blue side over there quickly. And again, the ads just kind of get melted there in the A-bombs limb and the Ursals. And same thing here, right? We play down, they play across, and they don't go too far down. They play a little bit up. Boom, second damage amp. And again, you could be on either side now, depending on which side Skynspinner jumped to. So you're either here or on the far side. And immediately, though, we're going to go to the middle here. And this means that technically you can be on different markers. So we're going to be playing here over on Skull. That's going to be our general marker, whereas the other team is going to be on Triangle. So basically we're doing like a loose spread here. Boom. And now we're in Intermission 1. So Intermission 1, key thing to note here, the patterns are always consistent. You will always get the same set of patterns in this intermission. Let's jump quickly to the raid plan here. Yeah, there we go. Web patterns always the same. What you're going to see here is we have one group here, one group here. Again, in this case, I believe it was reversed. We have the blues on Triangle and the reds on Skull here. But if the boss had jumped to the other side, it would have been the other way around. So you can be on either side here. We also have a range from each side. So this is a red range and this is a blue range, red range, blue range. They play on each side. They just basically do their own little circle. They rotate, they spawn an orb, they rotate clockwise, soak the other person's orb, etc. Reduces their movement, of course, makes it a little easier for them specifically. You don't need to do this. You can actually have them still play with the group, especially because a lot of the time you're going to be holding damage in this phase, especially once you get here consistently with people alive. Like this shield just gets absolutely obliterated, and you want to actually survive quite a few rotations so that you have damage again for the next damage amp, so you have CDs available. So potentially you're fine having these people stay in the group, but you know, it's also fine to do what we did here, have them outside just to reduce their movement, make it a little easier for them specifically. The only problem with doing this is if someone from the main group gets knocked back, they are almost, 9 times out of 10, they're going to kill the one range player here of the opposite color, which isn't ideal. So it's something to be aware of. But whatever really works for your group is totally fine. So the first thing, because movement is consistent, that means every single intermission phase you do the same thing. So we loose spread on your marker, whether that's Skull, whether that's Triangle, loose spread around it. We probably could have been a little bit more left here. And then immediately the first movement is left. You always go left or clockwise around the boss here. So we're moving to the left, which is clockwise. They're also moving left or clockwise based on where they're facing. So we move. You wait here for this to go off, and then you soak. And again, there is no rush to soak here. You see, we still have 10 seconds. This one hasn't gone off yet. We are safe to just wait for this to go off and then soak. Now, the key here, is immediately after this goes away, we want to push a little bit left. Again, keeping loosely spread as we can. Don't want doubles if we can avoid it. It's not the end of the world anymore if you get a double or two, but you want to have as few double stacks as possible, which is why we have this loose spread formation. Again, trying to do the same thing every single pull makes it easier. So we're going to wait. That's going to go off. We're going to get those soaks. We loose spread to a little bit to the left. And now from now on, we're always going right or counterclockwise. Every single other movement outside of the first one is counterclockwise just based on the pattern. So we're going to see here, we wait now for this one to detonate. Then we go soak. And again, same deal. We wait for this one. Get our last soaks, loose spread, and then we keep going right. Keep going right. Get our soaks. This one you can go a little fast in this area. Then again, we loose spread here. Drop our things. We're going to keep going right, and you can see we've basically stopped damage on this thing. We're going to get this soak, and then this is where we end up pushing. You can see again, we're on skull marker again. That's where we end. And that is the entire intermission phase. Made it look easy there. It's not the hardest phase for sure, but it does take some getting used to. Again, biggest thing is do not rush those frontals. Those frontals, they have a bigger hitbox than they look. First off, the hitbox is significantly bigger than it looks. You can see me here, like how much respect I give the actual hitbox. Like this is how far away I stand. If I was like a few steps closer, like this would still hit you, even though it doesn't look like it, and you just kill this person behind you, right? That's what happens if you get hit by these frontals, basically. So respect the frontals. Know you have quite a bit of time before soaking. It's not the end of the world. You can always wait for this frontal to detonate before you go and soak. So do that. Make sure you are patient in this phase, and that will reduce the number of wipes you have in this situation. Then we get to the actual intermission here. Phase 2, sorry. So we're on skull. Again, always we're going to be baiting a nerub-ar's frontal initially. So his frontal is going to go out, and then we're going to rotate, and the other team's going to rotate also. Whenever a frontal goes out, you always dodge clockwise. So we're going to go from skull to square. The other team doesn't have a frontal, I believe. So they're going to go from where they are on triangle over to X just to match us. They're going to mirror us. Frontal goes out. So we're going to go to square here. And boom, they're going to mirror us. Move a little bit here. And they're going to center. And basically what's going to happen now is the webs. So the webs go out. We grind a little bit. And this is where our note comes into play. Like I mentioned earlier, what are these web pairings? Basically, to kind of reduce the soaks whenever possible, which I think it's for like all but like one, maybe two of the web pull-ins on the fight, you have enough time to actually get with a partner. And this purposefully stacks 2 orbs on top of one singular spot. And both sides can do that. And what this essentially does is it makes it so that you just need to soak 1 orb. Basically, there's like, there's going to be 5 stacks of orbs. And so as long as 5 people run through one of the stacks each, all of the orbs are soaked. And this makes it pretty quick to actually soak all the orbs. It's pretty nice. And you immediately know, hey, I soak 1 stack of orbs. That's it, period. Don't ever soak anything else. And so that's why these pairs are kind of assigned for. And then also you can see there's a left and there's a right on each pair. And that is for if you ever get picked first. Because like I said, you're going to see here, the first group, they're going to be first, so I'm not going to get the message, but they're going to get first, and they're going to get left and right. And so in that case, they're going to run left and right, and they want to break their webs here, right? There's no charge to stop in this phase, and so the partner designated left is always going to run left. The partner designated right is always going to run right, and that's going to instantly break their web to minimize damage taken. When you are also designated as center here, which you're going to see in a second, it's through boss, that's the WeakAuras. I'm going to try and get some soaked, and then you can see my partner is going to go right. And he went far enough right that I didn't need to go left at all, which is useful in that case. But if he didn't go that far right, I would be starting to veer left, and that would also break our thing. So the left and right is nice for just breaking your web quickly. And this goes straight into the dispels. You can see here what the dispels look like. Let me maximize there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I believe 1 is already dispelled actually. Yeah, here they come out. They have the dispels, and basically how this WeakAuras works is it prioritizes, I believe, putting the blue side as early dispels. So blue side will always be the early dispels if they have them. In this case, we only have 1 blue side dispel on the mage, and all 4 of the other ones are red side. And so our blue guy goes in instantly, and blue can kind of pre-position accordingly. Right? Blue knows, hey, if any of us are going to get it, we're going to go first. So they're going in, they get the dispel, and immediately we come out. The biggest thing for these dispels is get under the middle of the boss's hitbox. That is the biggest number one rule. Do not go like slightly to the edge, just behind the boss, just in front of the boss. Get under the boss's hitbox. This will reduce the amount of bounces you have, which are very, very frustrating wipes, right? You do not want to do that. Center of the boss's hitbox. Again, just show these WeakAuras. This one shows the player that has the debuff and the healer dispelling them based on the note. So I believe for the healer, it also makes their frame glow. So that is good. And we're basically just rapid firing these first few dispels off. Calm's very good here. If the person says, for example, I'm good, that's what we did the first couple players. When they got in a position, they would call for them to be themselves to be dispelled, and that lets them happen much faster than like a raid leader countdown. And then from there, we would do a little bit of a countdown, and then for the last dispel, it would always be on our shaman here, and he would milk the cast a little bit. Don't giga milk it. Don't wait till the last 0.5 seconds or whatever. Like you're going to see here. I don't know, actually. We'll see how far we milk it. Let's see. But the teleport goes off. The goal is always here to do 2 before the teleport and to do 3 after. So the teleport went off. We already had 2. The third person gets dispelled. And then again, they're moving out. And red team too, you want to make sure, I mean, both teams really, you get dispelled, you get the heck out of there because you don't want to be bounced to, right? You don't want to accidentally have it be bounced to you. Specifically, the red team doesn't usually have to worry about the blue team running on top of them. The blue team, of course, need to be scared of like, hey, I need to get this dispel and get out because a red person may be coming after me. But the red team is never worried about that specifically. But you never want to have, 2 players directly under the boss. That's going to cause problems, more problems than benefits for sure. And then again, we're just going 4th person's getting their dispel, and now the 5th person is just going to be AFK directly on the boss there. Boom. It was dispelled about a second. So yeah, you probably don't even need to milk it that much. And then that's our damage amp. From here, we're going back to our markers. So again, triangle and skull, and we're going to both bait frontals. Both sides bait a frontal here. And again, both sides then rotate clockwise after their frontal. And immediately you need to look here. As soon as teleport starts casting, you're going to see I'm ahead of the group. You can see it's kind of hard to see. The boss faces where she's going to teleport. And this can be 4 spots. It's like here, 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 and here. Like around the room, kind of like that. The 4 kind of corners. It's a circle, I know. But the 4 kind of corners of the room are the places she can teleport here. And she will face it while she's casting teleport. So we have speeds here. You can see I just roared. And I'm seeing she's facing over here. Which means she's going to about to port over there. So I pre-run. And the goal here is to always have groups go the path of least resistance. So you can see this was here. Red had the ability to go to either side, right? But they know we're on this side of the boss because we just rotated clockwise here. So they know they need to leave this spot open for us. So they go on the inside and we're playing on the outside of the boss here. This is the one that's fast where you don't have time to get to your pairs because Web Vortex happens immediately. So especially if you're a far run like this for blue side, you're just trying to get as close to the boss as close as possible. And in this case, we're again loose spreading here, no partners for this one because of how far and how quick it happens. So we go and we soak. And again, that purple circle is one that does spawn orbs, so be aware of that. Potentially, if an orb does spawn from that, for example, like if blue side was here, we spawned an orb, you could actually leave it alone. It would detonate after 20 seconds, but no one would have any stacks of their dot left. It would all have expired. And it would only put 1 stack of dot to the entire red team. And it's potentially too risky for red team to come over here to blue side and soak it, right? So if you have one of orbs that spawn from those kinds of mechanics, I usually recommend just leaving them because they're not usually not going to kill anyone. From here, we go straight into another set of dispels, as you can see. So again, we're going to try and get, we have 1 dispel go boom fast. There's a 2nd dispel boom before we move. And then you can see here, the next dispel, they're literally pre-positioned in the center of the room because they know at this point, hey, this boss is going to jump to the center of the room. We're only doing 2 dispels there. So immediately the 3rd person can kind of already preemptively go there. Instant dispel. And then we're slowly moving over towards them. We're getting the last couple dispels. It got like 6 seconds here. So you can see we milk it a little bit here. And then at 1 second, it gets dispelled. Boom. That's our next damage amp. And now we get to the Intermission 2. Intermission 2 is significantly easier than Intermission 1. I'm not going to go through I don't even think we have a raid plan for this phase, actually. But basically, a couple things. One, when the phase starts, you want to loose spread around the other markers now. Not triangle and skull, but we do blue and red. Blue and red. That's where we're loose spreading. Don't be near the center of the room. It's kind of annoying to soak orbs directly in the boss's hitbox. Kind of annoying. You're going to see here, Intermission is going to start. We're loose spread around blue. They're loose spread around red. And now this one's not consistent. This one's a bit RNG in terms of how quickly you can move. But there's also a new problem as of 11:05, and that is desync on these circles. So I'll talk about that quickly. This, I hope, is fixed soon TM, or is already fixed when I release this video. But there's been a desync issue on these spikes here, and also the web blades on Queen Ansarek. So basically, what's going to happen on this bowl, this was before the desync issues, before 11:05, so there is no desync. But look at these brown circles, right? They do their cast, and then when they pop, these spikes come up. Now, the desync issue is these brown circles will disappear, but the spikes will not appear. So if you are running into a desync issue where like half your raid gets hit by an invisible circle or something that isn't there, this is what happens. You basically, the circle disappeared, but the spikes didn't appear yet. So what you need to do, if that bug is still happening when you're doing this boss, whether it's this week or next week or whenever, if the desync issue is still a thing that exists, you need to watch the spikes, not the brown circles. You need to wait for the spikes to appear, and then you can move. That's how you would avoid the desync issue. But otherwise, again, we just rotate right. You have so much time to soak these orbs. If you have things like immunities, like BOPs, like, what's it called? IBF, any stun immunities. Human racial, I think, works on these as well. You can use those if you get hit. Otherwise, you rotate around, and you're basically always loose spreading around the opposite marker. So we started at blue, we're rotating, we're soaking around X, we stay around X, we drop our orbs, then we rotate around to back to where we started. Again, go slow or fast as needed. Wait for the spikes, soak, do a loose spread around here. And I think actually our goal was to beat the third. Yeah, this timer here, I believe, was to beat. I believe it was to beat the. I believe it's still to beat the third. We were just a little fast there, but yeah, we don't really stop DPS in this one like we do in the first one. We just kind of go and things line up as needed. Big thing here now. We're in phase 3. We're in phase 3. Okay, so phase 3, last phase of the fight. Immediately here, you need to watch. There's going to be this little circle thingy, spooky, very spooky. That is the boss spawn. So immediately, red is going to go on the side of that boss, again, closest to them, path of least resistance. So they're going to go that side right there because, again, they see we're us. We're going to have to get over there too. So they move over there, and they are going to bait a frontal over there and then rotate to the wall side of the room. We're going to face the boss, and we're going to be the center side of the room because we know they're going to end up on the wall, and we're going to do another web vortex here. In this phase, none of red breaks the actual webs. Never break, right? So in this case, I believe they're assigned to all go right if they get first, and then all go center if they get second. So they don't split left right. Blue side still does, because blue side is not going to be doing that mechanic, right? Blue side is all melee gang. They're all range gang for the most part. So they're going to go through, bait that frontal, rotate to the end. And now here is where the actual web vortex is going to happen. And again, we're going to have that WeakAuras come up. They got left, right. So they're going all right. And we are going straight through. And again, breaking left to right here. Watching this circle here. You can see it press up against that wall. Get all the soaks as we can. And they're doing the first break, again, kind of towards, a little bit towards the middle of the room there. And whoever doesn't break, they want to make sure they break their, there's going to be 2 extra people there, 2 extra pairs rather, that have a web. So they need to break their web. And you see they immediately ran away. And this is important because the other boss, Sky and Spinner, who is the red frontal boss, does a frontal immediately. So their goal here is to not frontal blue team. That's red's entire goal. So red doesn't really get to use this damage amp. Red immediately goes to Sky and Spinner and pre-positions here because there's another web vortex coming in 5 seconds. So they pre-position, and this is going to be just like a P2 web vortex. So they're going to go, they're going to get on their partner, or they're going to bait that frontal. They're going to get on their partner. Blue's going to do the damage amp, and then we're going to start cheating over towards the boss a little bit. And then you're going to see I'm going to do a speed boost here. And we're going to again get to our partners. This is a break, so again, because that's why we're doing it the same way we did in P2. No charge to stop here. So red group goes left, right. Blue group goes straight through in this case. And again, that's just based on web order, but in this case, red does break their webs. I'm breaking this web, getting our soaks, and this is going straight into a dispel. And again, blue wants to get 1 dispel here, and this phase is a little differently. Because, again, positioning can be a bit weird. If you can get the second dispel, that's okay. But it's not the end of the world. And we're actually going to have our warrior. You see, he leaps mid. He pre-positions mid, and this is also the strat we ended up using for a lot of them, is we did 1-4 in this phase a fair bit, and we did 2-3 in terms of dispels before the jump and dispels after the jump. So 2-3 in P2 and 1-4 in P3. So that means the second person now can pre-position in the middle of the room, get instant dispelled, and you have enough time here to actually make sure that all the players can get their dispels quickly, and boom, last dispel, damage amp. Now you just kind of repeat. This boss is again going to teleport to some side of the room. You're not in a rush to get over the boss. The red side is going to go path of least resistance when this guy teleports. Boom. So they're going to go right there. Got all the same jumps this pull, I just realized. And then we're going to again pull the boss on top. They're baiting it frontal, and then they're going the edge of the room. This is important. Because again, this is another charge. So this is another one where they're going to maintain their web. So if they get first, they're all going together right. If they get second, they're all going together center. And then they're going to go stop the charge. Now you can see we're on blue side doing something a little odd. We're pixel stacking our orbs. And this is where our kind of last charge strat comes in place. This is for the last damage into the fight, which we're about to bloodlust. We're about to nuke the bosses here. You can use a holy priest with long angel. They can soak every single one of these orbs, and they can just be an angel for basically the rest of the fight. It means that red side does not need to come back during the charge or before the charge and soak and then move up for the charge. It just means that you can have one person on red side do all of the soaking. They die, but they're basically still alive for the final burn and the dispel as needed. And red side can strictly focus on doing the webs. It's super useful here. So basically, again, we all stack up. The grips happen. So they get right, we get through. Here we go, we get our soaks. Again, we break our webs. They're in the middle of the room here. Getting soaks. And again, reminder, Angel of Death. Angel of Death here. Very, very bad angel. You can see where they're positioned. Honestly, they could have been a little bit further potentially here. Let's see if they move. Yeah, they do adjust. They do adjust a little bit further. And the goal here, again, boss has momentum. We want him to be stopped as close to the middle of the room as possible because this guy's about to teleport to the middle of the room. And again, we got our one dispel off here, and we're going to be ideally pre-positioning here. This is one of those ones where if you have two blues, you do want to try and get them dispelled onto the boss here if you can, because of how close red is. And this is very important. Red needs to do this break, and then these red guys on the blue side of the boss need to move over to the other side of red, because you can see blue's not going to have a ton of room to play. And same deal, these blues are going to come over here and rotate through probably. Avoiding the Angel of Death. That is important. The Angel of Death, bad. You can see here, red's playing this side, blue's playing this side, and we're doing our dispels in the center of the room. Basically, this is just one of those things where you're going to wipe a lot to this dispel, because there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of damage going out. People can die from webs, from dispels going out. And, you know, this is just by far the scariest part of the fight. I think we actually missed a dispel here, potentially. So, yeah, the goal was to get two, but I think this was one where that we weren't quite under the boss enough when that first dispel went off and it actually bounced. So be careful of that. Make sure you are under and the person is calling when they're under to get dispelled, especially the first and second dispel. Be vocal. So we only got one dispel off here, which makes this set of dispels very scary because our second person isn't pre-positioned. You can see there it's a bit delayed. They get in relatively quickly, but they weren't pre-positioned because they weren't ready to have to do that here. And now we're getting our dispels as quickly as possible on this guy. And again, just literally pop lust, pop pots, pop all CDs. Don't tunnel if you're a dispeller. You're just going to accept that you have not too much damage if you're one of the people dispelling. You can see here, very, very clean in terms of killing the boss in a timely manner. You can actually go quite far into the damage or the enrage here. You're not going to see it because this boss is getting owned in the damage amp, but you can go to like 920, 930 into the enrage and survive. So you have a ton of time here. Like I said, there's no DPS check on this boss. This boss is getting absolutely owned here. So the biggest thing about doing this is doing the dispels correctly, because that is what's going to kill you here. What's going to kill you here is missing a dispel like we did. And we luckily, I think what happens here is maybe our last two dispels hit each other or something like that, and we end up getting this. So again, little lucky here on this first kill in terms of getting these dispels right. But that is the biggest thing you want to tunnel on. If you are a dispel here, you do not focus on I have bloodlust, I'm potting, blah 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 blah. Don't worry about that. Get your dispel done correctly. Move in, call when you're good to be dispelled, It's very, very important because if this dispel doesn't go off, this is a wipe, right? But if this spell goes off, a lot of the times, if your raid is alive and you are successful at this dispel, the boss just dies. So very, very important that, yeah, that's definitely what happened. Yeah, they just hit each other. Very, very important here that you get these dispels. That is the most important thing for sure. But that is Silken Court. Hopefully it's not, an hour. It's not an hour long. Did it easy, not an hour. Boom. If you have any questions I didn't cover, let me know in the comments below. Like I said, WeakAuras, Raidplans, all that stuff's going to be linked in the description if you want to check it out. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thank you to my amazing Patreons for helping make content like this possible. And I'll see everyone in the next video.